So the president pushed his new 6-point plan tonight, but he could have put out a 15-point plan. This is basically out of his control in many ways, and he knows it. Fair or not, you could argue there's only one message at this point, and it's how the president ended his address. One message, 2 words: get vaccinated. The question is, who's listening? And that's where we begin tonight with NewsNation's Allison Harris in Washington. Allison, is the government essentially making our employers the vaccine police here?
Well, Joe, it is up to employers and federal agencies to enforce vaccination. Federal agencies, they all handle it differently. Some require seeing proof of vaccination, seeing that vaccination card, but others do not. And for business owners of companies with 100 or more employees, if the Labor Department puts this emergency order in place, those business owners could face steep penalties for not requiring vaccination for their workers or requiring them to get tested. Labor safety regulators could issue fines for more than $10,000. And that rule alone impacts more than 80 million workers in the private sector. And by the way, the president's spokeswoman today acknowledged some people could lose their jobs over this. These mandates also impact more than 17 million healthcare workers who are also now required to get vaccinated. It impacts any healthcare facility that gets reimbursed by Medicare or Medicaid, which means most of the hospitals in this country. And there are already people who are questioning whether this is legal and people committing to challenging the administration. We saw that from the governor of South Dakota. She tweeted that she will defend freedom and that she will see the president in court, just as there have been lawsuits filed to stop school mask mandates. We are also anticipating more lawsuits filed here. And Joe, just remember, because I think it's important to remember what the president has said before. He said even when he was campaigning, he did not believe in federal vaccine mandates for everyone. It's unclear whether they've gotten legal guidance, if that could be something to put in place moving forward as variants continue to surge, or what the legal guidance is that they got on these vaccine mandates that he announced today. Joe? Either way, a big development. Allison, thank you for the update live tonight at the White House. Let's dig a little deeper now with 2 guests. Ellis Hennigan, Dow Jones Market Watch columnist, and also David Mark, senior editor at the Washington Examiner. Ellis, let's start with you. As I understand it, about 2/3 of the country's workforce would be impacted by this. So the employers are now being, as we said, asked to be the vaccine police. Do you think this is going to work, and is it the right move?
Powerful motivator, get ready for the scarlet C for COVID. You know, our employers limit our freedom in all kinds of ways. I've had employees who've actually insisted that I come in before noon. And so legally, it seems to me like they're standing on pretty solid ground here.
David, can the government do this? It seems, as we said in the open, they're going from the carrot basically to the stick.
Well, we'll find out in court in the coming days, weeks, and months whether the federal government has the legal right to do this. I do think the Biden administration is broadly on the side of public opinion here. I think people are kind of tired of having to bow to the unvaccinated, but case law may be different, so we will find out.
Ellis, the president has, as Allison mentioned, shied away from mandates early on, and now it appears he's embracing them. It sounded today like he's running out of patience with the unvaccinated. We mentioned as well, there's really not much else he can do other than plead with people. This is one way to do it. Politically, how much do you think is riding on his ability to address this?
You know, he's got to solve the problem. I mean, there's great and growing frustration, most of it, you're right, aimed at the unvaccinated. And he's got to come up with a solution. Something has got to work here. We've got to get those 25% of American adults who are refusing to do it. If the employer can pressure them, great. If the bar owner can pressure them, the airline, whatever and whomever it takes.
David, one of my questions of many on this thing after I heard about it is how in the world are they going to enforce this? And I know that there have been cases where healthcare systems have required people to get the vaccine. Their workers, and several workers either left or quit or got fired as a result of not getting it.
Yeah, there are fines involved up to about $14,000 or so. We haven't really heard about the collections mechanism for all of this. It seems like it's a bit more on the honor system. What I think it's saying essentially to businesses is we're watching you. The long arm of the federal government is looking down upon what you're doing. Personally, I'm skeptical many people would actually quit their jobs rather than giving up their paychecks rather than getting vaccinated. But there are some examples of that, but I would think that's in the minority.
Ellis, what do you think is the end result of this? We talked in the open as well about people really aren't listening, and I don't know whether it's COVID exhaustion or COVID fatigue or whatever you want to call it. I mean, there was a 6-point plan tonight. The main headline was the one that we are talking about here, these mandates. I don't know if anyone else even heard the other 5. We're worn out here.
Yeah, increasing pressure. That's what all this is about. It's making your life uncomfortable and then more uncomfortable if you refuse to do it. If you want to participate in society, it's getting harder and harder to do so if you don't have a vaccine.
David, we're at each other's throats on this thing. Do you see it getting any better? And I guess I'm wondering if this will help.
No, I don't think this is going to persuade people one way or another. Those who do not want to get vaccinated, it may probably not going to make them really very enthusiastic about it, but it may make them want to keep their jobs. And in a sense, I think that stick rather than the carrot metaphor is accurate here. The federal government has something to hold over people's heads. It's probably going to anger President Biden's critics even more, but it may actually have the effect of forcing some people to keep their own jobs to actually go along with this.
Ellis, we talked on the broadcast a lot about how this unpolitely has become a Darwinian moment for society. Do you think that continues? I mean, we are squared off on this.
It is, but don't forget, at this point, it's pretty much of a 75-25 issue. Unlikely to be much damage to Biden's political standing if those 25% of people who are already mad at him just get a little more mad at him. And you know what? Maybe a few of them will get vaccinated.
All right, we'll see. Ellis Hennigan, Dow Jones Market Watch columnist, and David Mark, senior editor at the Washington Examiner. Thank you both for your time and your insight tonight.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Let's pivot now to top Dr. Allison R. Waddy, heads up the Department of Public Health in Chicago. Doctor, thanks for your time. You've been listening to the discussion here. Do you think this is going to work? I mean, the people who were hesitant are already saying they don't want to be told what to do. Do you think this works, or will it backfire?
So we certainly have seen in surveys that there are a lot of Americans who have said, I'm really not going to get vaccinated unless I'm required to, like in a job setting, like in an employment setting. I actually think that the president's drawn a good line here with those employers who have 100 people or more. It's a requirement to either get vaccinated or the employee needs to bring proof of a negative test every week. So it's not actually saying broadly, you've got to get vaccinated. But if you're not, like I heard somebody else say, your life is just going to get harder. Our goal in Chicago is to be open and to be safe. And I think the goal here is to get the U.S. open and do that as safely as possible.
Well, we talked a minute ago about how no one's really listening. And that's just, I guess, again, a result of the exhaustion. And as someone who's trying to get a message out, I'm wondering about something that has been implemented here in Chicago for the unvaccinated. If you travel, you're supposed to get a test beforehand. You're supposed to get a test when you come back. And even if it's negative, you're supposed to quarantine for 7 days. The vaccinated aren't willing to get the shot, Doctor. Do you think they're going to go through all that?
So really what we've seen actually in a lot of cases is this plays the biggest role, again, in businesses and in schools, where we are not, as the city, necessarily requiring this. It's an advisory.
Sure.
But one of the safest ways to keep workplaces safe and schools safe is to require that. So what we have seen is a lot of businesses, including the city of Chicago, saying you can't travel if you're unvaccinated on our dollar, right? Anybody who is on this travel advisory. And so I do think in the same way, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not about ever saying this is absolutely something you must do, but to participate in certain activities like traveling, or especially if you're in a public-facing role, if you work in a healthcare setting, I do think that you've got a responsibility not to put people at risk who you're helping care for.
People are angry, Doctor. You know that. They're confused. They're frustrated. Based on what you do every day, you're a big part of this and have been for a long time. Where would you put your adjective right now? How would you describe it?
So I actually remain very hopeful. Really, where we look at the data again, there's about, here in Chicago, 10% of people have really said, I'm not getting vaccinated, unless, for example, there's a mandate, like through an employer. But a larger percentage are still in that in-between. They haven't done it yet, but they're not in the loud anti-vax crew. They've just been hesitant. They've been worried. There were some smaller things in President Biden's announcements, like requiring these businesses with 100 people to give people time off to get vaccinated, and even if they have side effects for a day or two, that will help, I think, also address some of this. We're making progress every day here. And let me tell you that for people in their late 50s and 60s, like especially Black and Latinx Chicagoans, if they get COVID, they're 40 to 50 times more likely to die if they're unvaccinated. So for me, more than the political piece, it's about just saving people's lives. And we're seeing people make that choice every day. I think conversations like this, for a lot of people, some people are stick, some people are carrot, but it's about saying, look, our whole goal is to keep Chicago, keep the U.S. open, and save lives, and especially your life while we're at it.
Let's get you on schools quickly, Doctor, while we have you. How is it going? Because I know it's been a bit of a mess here in Chicago and across the country. Some schools are closing as a result of contact tracing. How do we manage this? And second of all, when do you think we'll have a vaccine for those 12 and under?
Sure. So here in Chicago, I think we've done the two most important things, which is at least as school is getting started, we have universal masking in place, and we have a vaccine requirement for all adults. That is a combination of the two things I would say that are the most important. And as we continue to work on getting children, especially older children, vaccinated, the safety in school settings is only going to improve. But we saw that they were able to be open in person even prior to COVID. So yes, we're going to see quarantines. Yes, things are getting going. But I remain very confident that we absolutely can continue to have safe in-person education. And I think related to the timing, nobody knows for sure, but I think probably 6 to 11-year-olds, the earliest I would expect to see something approved would be later, maybe in like November potentially, some of the earliest that could be available there. So still a little ways off, but we got to finish the science, make sure those vaccines are safe and fully effective, just like we've done for adults, even more important, I'd argue, for kids.
Dr. Allison Arwady of the Chicago Department of Public Health. I know you're very busy. We appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Portland's mayor now saying his hands-off policing policy wasn't the right one after protests turned violent last month. But how will things be different next time around? And Republican gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder targeted on the campaign trail in California. Protesters threw eggs at him and fired pellet guns at his security detail. News from a dramatic recall campaign. That's coming up next. I'll speak with one man stumping for Larry Elder on the campaign trail. Friend of the program, Dave Rubin, joins us next. And don't forget to follow us on social media at The Donlon Report on Twitter. That was California recall candidate Larry Elder coming under attack from a woman in a gorilla mask during a homeless encampment tour in Venice Beach, California. Joining me now to get his take on this and more, Dave Rubin, host of The Rubin Report and author of Don't Burn This Book. Dave, it's been a while since we've seen you. I know you had your summer vacation. It's good to have you back. And I also know you've been out speaking at these rallies for Larry Elder. How's that going? And did you get hit by any eggs?
Well, I'll tell you, Joe, the rallies have been unbelievable. I mean, I was just at a rally a few days ago in Thousand Oaks. It was about 95, maybe 100 degrees out in a parking lot at 2 p.m., height of the, SoCal heat. And there were 1,000 excited people there, and they're across the political spectrum. One of the memes out there that's being pushed by Newsom and now his surrogates, former President Barack Obama and Kamala Harris and everything else, is that this is a Republican recall. That is simply not the truth. There are Democrats, liberals, libertarians, independents. Many of the people that signed the recall in the first place, and I would include myself in this, are sort of lefties that were just mugged by reality after years of violence and riots and being locked down and mask mandates and businesses closed and everything else. So fortunately, I have not been hit by any eggs, but I want to give you some credit, Joe, for covering this, because if this had been a Democrat, let's pretend what everyone's watching right there, if that was Stacey Abrams, say a black Democrat, and a white person in a gorilla costume threw an egg at them, that would be the cover of the New York Times, Washington Post. It would have been the lead story on CNN and MSNBC and everywhere else. But of course, Larry, as a conservative who happens to be black, sorry, they're not going to cover it all. So credit to you for covering it.
Dave, let's talk a little bit more about the reality here. And in all seriousness, this was uncalled for, and it's unfortunate to see. But we did have a graphic that we wanted to share with you that showed Newsom was bringing in the big guns. The vice president, as you mentioned, was there yesterday, and President Biden comes in Monday. Elder gets you And we say that with all due respect, Dave. But seriously, this shows what Republicans are up against in this election, right?
Yes. Look, Barack Obama just cut a very dishonest ad attacking Larry Elder. So they've got Newsom, they've got Obama, and they've got Kamala Harris. We've got Larry Elder, me, and Scott Baio from Charles in Charge. And I'll tell you, Joe, I like our chances. You know, David beat Goliath, you know?
Realistically, though, Dave, I mean, come on. What is this going to take? If Larry, first of all, there are two questions on this ballot, which people may or may not know. The first one is, should Newsom be recalled? And the second one is, who should replace him? So Newsom has to lose that first one. What's it going to take? Is that the more important question? Obviously, whether he retains it, right? Question number one.
Right. So I'll do the latter part first, which is who should replace him. In that regard, Larry Elder's crushing the opponents. There is nobody close. Caitlyn Jenner is not a real candidate. So let's put that part aside. As far as will people vote yes or no, I certainly hope people will vote yes. I think the people that want this recall to happen, that hand-signed, over 2 million people who hand-signed the recall at the height of the pandemic, you couldn't do it online, those people are motivated. I don't know anyone that likes Newsom. That being said, he's part of the machine, and the machine defends itself. And, you know, this is a one-party Democrat-run state where they will accept election ballots mailed in on election day, which means if they don't get the result they want on the 14th and it's close, it's like, do you think they're really going to call the election that night or find what they need to find? I don't mean that as a conspiracy theory. I mean that as just the machine is broken here. That's what so many people are fighting against.
All right, Dave, we want to get your take on a couple other things. This story we've been following out of Portland, Oregon, there was some major clashes in the streets last month between armed protesters and then counter-protesters. And even when things got violent, everyone was wondering, where are the police? Well, they opted to take a hands-off approach. And now the mayor there, Ted Wheeler, says in hindsight, it's clear based on public and media outcry, the hands-off approach was not the right strategy.
Well, look, if you want to talk recalls, I mean, Portland should be recalling this clown. I mean, he basically caused this. You know, I'm mostly a libertarian in most of my beliefs, but really, if we were to be governed the way we're supposed to be governed, our elected officials would sort of do very little. They'd make sure we're kept safe and that there's a fire department and we have safe roads and things of that nature, and then get out of the way. But he decided over the course of the last few years to let Antifa and protesters burn down cities, attack the federal courthouse in Portland, ransack buildings, steal things, drugs everywhere. I mean, we've all seen the videos. You're showing some pictures right now. So he's getting exactly what he deserves. By the way, he so condoned and actually exacerbated all of this that when protesters showed up to his apartment, he decided to move. He actually moved. I don't know if you know that. He moved. They showed up to his apartment and he said, okay, I just won't live here anymore. That'll be the answer that I have for you guys. So Portland is just another progressive dystopia, much like Seattle, much like in many ways what's happened in New York City, and certainly what's happened in San Francisco, and unfortunately even where I am in Los Angeles.
Dave, we're up against the clock. One more thing, though. You heard Howard Stern, and if you didn't, we'll play it again for you right now on COVID and the vaccinated and unvaccinated.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to live. I want to get out of the house already. I want to go next door and play chess.
So where are you on this, Dave?
Joe, you know, one of the things that stinks about getting older is you find that many of your heroes become either frauds or sellouts or nut jobs. And I used to love Howard Stern. Truly, it was one of my dreams to be on his show. But that's just embarrassing.
You're saying
the
mandate part of it?
The mandate part of it, Howard Stern, I get it. He's a germaphobe in general. That's been known for decades. But okay, get vaccinated, put your mask on if you want, social distance, live how you want to live. I'm not in the business of telling people how they want to live. And if we were all serious about this, you know what we'd be talking about? We'd be talking about diet and exercise and obesity and diabetes, and we don't talk about that at all.
That's the question, though, Dave. I mean, does someone's freedom outweigh everyone else's? And that's what the president said today that got everyone's attention.
Yes, we are a free nation. As far as I know, we are still a free nation. It's hanging on by a thread, and Biden's speech today was quite an assault on freedom. But I believe in individual choice and individual freedom, and you should talk to your medical doctor and you should do what's right for you. But the idea that, you have to be vaccinated so Howard Stern could feel safe? No, ridiculous.
Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report and author of Don't Burn This Book. Good to see you back from vacation. Take care, Dave.
Good to see you, Joe.
We are 2 days away from the 20th anniversary of 9/11, a day that we will never forget for everyone, certainly, who lived through it. I'm going to speak with a man who lost his father on 9/11 and ask if he's changed his mind about not wanting President Biden to attend the anniversary ceremonies this weekend. Hard to believe it's been 20 years. This Saturday, it'll be 2 decades since the September 11th attack on America. Here's what then President George W. Bush said when visiting Ground Zero 2 days after the attack.
I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Tonight, we are taking a look at the state of our security. NewsNation's Tom Negevin in New York for us live tonight, where preparations for Saturday's 9/11 ceremony are well underway tonight. And Tom, it sounds like federal agencies have already issued a warning as this anniversary approaches.
Well, you know, they have, remaining vigilant as always, Joe. Good to be with you. Getting a bit of a chill listening to that sound, those words, standing so close to that spot. We're just at the foot of the Freedom Tower here on the West Side Highway in Lower Manhattan. Police all around us, new barricades actually going up until just a short time ago here. So, yes, they're getting ready for Saturday. And intelligence agencies telling us they are getting wind of a bit more anti-American Al-Qaeda chatter online, keeping an ear to that, an eye on that, but no specific credible threats is the bottom line there as of tonight. Last night here in Lower Manhattan, the Tribute in Lights rehearsal, the twin beams reaching into the sky, honoring the lives lost 2 decades ago on that horrible day that changed America forever. As we've been reporting, the NYPD and its Joint Terrorism Task Force have stepped up security as we approach the anniversary. They've been doing that not for days, but for weeks, for longer than that, reminding us their response to terrorism has evolved a lot over the last 20 years, their intelligence gathering capabilities too. The threats, though, have evolved quite a bit too, including the threats they're finding online in their work, separating the chatter from the signal from the noise, if you will, in that chatter, the work they do daily. They say, though, the call to action by terror groups has grown louder as of late.
We've seen the Al-Qaeda magazine, Wolves of Manhattan, which is named for the 9/11 hijackers, come out with a new issue. We've seen the Inspire Guide, another terrorist publication, circulating. We've seen a trailer for an Al-Qaeda film that is supposed to come out soon. So we take note of all of that.
Now, the last bulletin issued by the Department of Homeland Security's Terror Alert System, that was issued about a month ago, just saying that the belief is that terrorists may take advantage or be drawn to action by the 9/11 anniversary. But again, and they are stressing this now, as they are ever vigilant, no credible or known threat against New York or the United States, Joe.
Let's hope it stays that way. NewsNation's Tom Negevin in New York City. Tom, thanks for the update. More Americans are saying the events of 9/11 had a negative impact, more negative than positive, on the country overall. According to a Washington Post poll, more than 8 in 10 Americans say those events changed the country in a lasting way. That's certainly understandable. Nearly half say the terror attacks changed the country for the worse. Comparison, in 2002, 1 year after the attacks, 55% said the country had changed for the better. I want to bring in now Brad Blakeman, former senior White House advisor under George W. Bush, and Brett Eagleson, whose father was killed in the 9/11 attacks. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming back and joining us. We appreciate it. Brad, let's start with you. I know you were at the White House on 9/11. Tell us what you remember most about that day.
Well, I remember in my office in the West Wing watching as everybody was glued to the television set, the second plane hit the tower, and that was confirming that America was under attack. I immediately went to the Situation Room, which was down the hall from my office, to see what they knew. They were watching it in real time. There was a delay between what was going on and what we knew, the intelligence that we could gather. And then there came a time when we were evacuated from the West Wing because they said a plane was coming for the White House. And I evacuated to another place off the White House complex and led a group of 150 staff there. And of course, the president returned later that afternoon to address the nation. But I saw a nation come together. I saw a government respond accordingly to the attack in a measured way and a deliberate way in which the president led this country, and we're a lot safer today than we were 20 years ago. And every soul who was lost on that day, every person who was injured, their life was not in vain. Our nation is secure today, and their lives will never be forgotten.
Brett, let's take you back to 9/11 and get your memories. I can only imagine how that day unfolded for you, having lost your dad. What's the lasting memory for you?
Yeah, well, again, I think the reason why I'm here tonight is we told the same sob story for 19 years, right? We've been on camera. We've poured our hearts out to America. We've said the emotional angle for 19 years. This year is different. The families are frustrated. We're pissed off. We're pissed off at our government. We're angry. You had played a clip recently before the segment about President Bush saying, the people who knocked down those towers will hear from us soon. They've never heard from us. Saudi Arabia has never heard from us. Our government has thwarted us for 20 years. They've hid the information. They kept it under lock and key for 20 years. So frankly and respectfully, I'm not here to talk about that day. We've done that for years.
Okay.
I'm here to talk about justice and closure.
Fair enough. On that point then, Brett, President Biden seems to be the first and only since these documents that you want released, at least has said now that he's willing to take another look at the possibility of releasing them. Is that enough for you?
Yeah, and well, I mean, we commend President Biden. He's the only president, not Bush, not Obama, not Trump. Neither of those presidents had the courage to stand up for American citizens. Neither of those presidents had the courage to actually give us closure and give us truth. So we commend President Biden tonight for taking the first step to start this declassification process. It may not be enough, but the proof will be in the pudding, and we will see soon enough what documents we will get. There are documents that exist that our government has. I think that my co-guest knows and is very aware of them. It's called Operation Encore, and they're documents that implicate the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So we want those, and we're not going away, and we're not going anywhere, and we demand them, and we demand justice and closure.
Brad, why not release those? And is there any truth to what Brett is saying here?
Well, look, I mourn for the loss of Brett's father. I lost my nephew on that day. He was a first responder who died saving others in the South Tower. I was the only person in the White House who lost a family member. And I can tell you, I focused very intently on what the president did. I was a member of his senior staff, and we responded accordingly. And I'll disagree with Brett. We took it to those who did us harm, and we annihilated pretty much.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. But if you disagree with me, why don't you join with me and call for the declassification of these documents?
Should they be declassified, Brad?
To tell you the truth, I don't know, because I don't know what is in our country's best interest. That's why we have elected officials.
Is there anything in there that justifies? Is there anything in there that justifies the closure and the confidentiality of information that is kept secret for 20 years that murdered 3,000 Americans? What's more important than that? What's more at risk than that,
my
sir?
nephew was one of them. My nephew is one of them. I want to see justice done.
So
I happen to believe that justice.
How does your sister feel? How does your sister feel? How does your sister feel?
I don't speak for my sister, but what I do speak for is that if it's in the best interest of the United States that classified information be released with regard to 9/11, then yes, of course it should be. But there are things that are in the best interest of the United States that are in our interest that should remain classified. I can't tell you because I don't know, and you don't know either.
The murder of 3,000 Americans. You don't know either, but I lost my dad, and I'd like to talk to your sister.
To his point, though, I mean, no one knows these events. They're classified, so no one really knows what's in them, right?
I wasn't in the White House on 9/11, but I know that there's plenty of FBI agents who have come forward and said that the Saudis are responsible.
Brad, do you think ultimately these documents will be released?
I think the documents that are necessary to be released will be released. But there are some documents that perhaps may not be released because it's not in our national interest for that to happen, because it doesn't shed any light on some of the conspiracy theories that are out there. I will tell you this, that I am absolutely for transparency, but I'm only for transparency if it's in the best interest of the United States of America as a whole.
Hey, Brett, are you okay with the president coming to these ceremonies now?
I wear this American flag because I love this country. My brother went to war after 9/11 to avenge my father's death. He won 2 Bronze Stars in Iraq. My father gave his life. He could have walked outside of those buildings. He could have walked right out the lobby. I love this country, and I love America, but why does our government love us back? Why do they deny us closure? Keep your sources, keep your methods. We're not looking for that. We're looking for justice, truth, and transparency.
Brett, do you want the president to come to these ceremonies this weekend? Initially, you didn't. Has this change in reviewing the documents changed?
It's absolutely changed. I mean, he's the first president that's made an executive order. He's personally intervened on our behalf. He's personally acknowledged our struggle for 20 years. So he's the only president that's actually done anything about this. But, you know, we are cautiously optimistic. We're guarded. We've been duped before.
He's welcome this weekend?
I think the proof will be in the pudding. He's welcome this weekend, but the proof will be in the pudding with what the documents bring out.
Right. Brad Blakeman.
Or actually with what the document, yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Brad Blakeman and Brett Eagleson, thank you both. We appreciate your time, and we wish you the best going into Saturday. Thank you both.
Thank you.
For the first time since the military withdrawal, Americans boarded a flight out of Kabul, but with more Americans still stuck in Afghanistan, the journey to get them home isn't over. Plus, lions led by donkeys. That's how one Harvard-educated PhD described American soldiers today and their leaders. And as the Biden administration removed Trump appointees from the Pentagon today, it's hard to argue politics are not at play. We'll get into that ahead. A commercial flight with more than 100 passengers, many of them Americans, fleeing the country after the Taliban took over, now safely landed in Qatar. Joining me now for more, NewsNation's Joe Khalil. Joe, this was certainly good to see.
Yeah, obviously, you know, a big deal and a big move forward, Joe. The fact that for the first time since the military left Afghanistan, we now have Americans who were left behind that are able to get out. That first tranche, at least, of 30 or so. What's strange is we still don't know exactly how many. The State Department says that they put an invite out to more than 30 American citizens and permanent residents, but they said that not everybody who was invited actually showed up at the airport, and they couldn't clarify how many. But again, ballpark 30, and it is significant. So you're right. Those folks already landed in Qatar. Many of them may already be on planes here on their way to the United States now. Again, a good thing. And the State Department says that these flights are going to continue now that the Kabul airport is at least open for some of these commercial flights. Remember, 200 people total on board. Not all of them were Americans or Canadians. Many of them are Afghans, our allies that people here have said they want to give protection and also now live and resettle in the United States, Joe.
Joe, what are you hearing about the Taliban and their cooperation with this operation and getting Americans not just on these flights, but to the airport?
You know, it's kind of the conundrum. It's the discussion we've been having for the past couple of weeks now. Today, the White House and the State Department both sort of got flack for saying this, but the Taliban has lived up to its commitment. They said they were not going to interfere, and even further, that they would actually help facilitate, get Americans and Afghans to the airport and on these flights. And so far, that is what we've seen. I talked to a member of Congress today about this. Also, we heard from the White House. Here's what Press Secretary Jen Psaki had to say about it.
In order to get those people out, we had to work with some members of the Taliban to press them and to work in a business-like manner to get them out. That is what we were stating in the statement.
Now, again, a member of Congress I talked to today said this is going to be a tough balance because he says it's likely going to be the case that we will have to continue working with the Taliban in order to get the remaining Americans out of the country. Joe.
All right, Joe Khalil, thank you for the update. We appreciate it. Joining me now for more on the situation in Afghanistan, retired Army Colonel Scott Mann. He's joined us quite often with his insights on Afghanistan. He knows the country well. So this is good news, I'm guessing. What do you think about this flight out? Is it a sign of more to come?
I mean, I hope so, Joe. Thanks for having me on. I hope it is. But I can tell you right now that there are a number of at-risk Afghans who are not going to be able to get on those flights. And, you know, I want to make sure that we're not characterizing the Taliban's behavior right now as some benevolent force that's, you know, escorting people to airplanes. Like, they're hunting and killing people that are opposed or that they view as a threat to their regime. And you know, that's happening as well in a major way.
I know you're trying to get people out as well with your organization. How is that happening now? Has it changed since this flight out today? Do you think it will?
Oh, I mean, we remain committed to help any way that we can in the whole process, Joe. I mean, that includes safe passage. It includes resettlement, reintegration. Like, there's a whole host of problems that we think we can play a role as special ops volunteers. I don't want to speak to any of the methods or anything like that, but we've been involved from the beginning. The veteran population is here to honor a promise with the men and women who bled with us, and we intend to do that all the way through. We're not going away.
Are you confident, or how much trust do you have in the Taliban cooperating with the international community moving forward?
I mean, it depends on the category, doesn't it? I think that I'm more confident when you talk about American citizens and maybe even SIVs. But when you start talking about people who are literally seeking safe harbor because of whatever path they walked when we were in the country, put them at direct odds with this new regime, I'm not confident in the Taliban's willingness to allow them to freely live the country. In fact, I'm very confident in the fact that they're trying to walk them down and hunt them down. And that's something that I think needs to stay top of mind for all Americans, because we made a commitment, a promise to those people that we would help them get out, and we need to do that.
Colonel, there's an opinion piece I wanted to get you on here from The Hill. I don't know if you saw it, but it takes aim at U.S. leaders on the withdrawal. And the headline pretty much speaks for itself. It says, American soldiers today, lions led by donkeys. Now, that goes back to World War I. Do you think that's fair or too harsh?
You know what? I'm not even going to go there, because right now we are a group of veterans who it would be very easy to get angry. But instead, what we did was we just got to work, and we intend to do that. That's what warriors do. While everybody else is machinating over the blame and assigning that, we're going to get to work, and we're going to stay at it, and we're going to honor the promise. And that's what we need to stay focused on. I think as a nation, I think you're starting to see the American people feel the same way. They're tired of assigning blame, and they want to just see honoring a promise. They want to see meaningful action. And I think our combat veterans are showing us what that looks like, Joe. And it's really cool to see that. And I think we all need to pay attention to it, because it's something we all should be doing.
That is the lion part of the statement. We'll leave the donkey debate, I guess, to others. Scott, before we let you go, White House has asked 18 members of military boards, all appointed by former President Trump, to step down. And critics are pointing to something he said during his inauguration. Here's the clip.
Unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America.
So there were some surprises in this, Colonel. H.R. McMaster, Sean Spicer, who clapped back a bit. Doesn't this happen all the time, though?
I think it's devolved to such a degree in the country and such a level of contempt at political levels that no one's even surprised by it, which to me as a combat veteran is sad. I think as we approach 9/11 right now, the veterans' dilemma is that watching our political leadership right now, the way they treat each other, the way they show up for each other at a time when we really should be rallying around each other, it's very uninspiring. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, Scott Mann, retired Army Colonel. Hey, it's always great to have your voice. You know we love having you on the show. Have a good night.
Thanks, Joe.
Up next, tonight's American Snapshot. One woman says it was the small daily gesture by her husband that kept her fighting to stay alive in the ICU. We talked a lot tonight about the divisions and the politics surrounding the virus, the vaccine, the masks, and all of that. But we're going to set it all aside now and talk about some of the actual people behind all of those arguments and statistics. Our American Snapshot tonight features the love of a husband and how it sustained his wife during her fight with COVID. Last month, Donna Crane was in respiratory failure from the virus. To ease her fears and to show Donna she wasn't alone, her husband, Gary, a Florida fireman, showed up every morning in the hospital parking lot before he went to work, holding big block letters that say, "I love you," for 10 days straight.
I just wanted her to know that, because I know she was going to be scared and I couldn't be there with her. And I just wanted her to know that I'm there.
The nurses would sit me up in the bed, let me look out the window so I could see he was there at 8 a.m. And I knew, okay, we're gonna do this.
Now, despite a long road to recovery, Donna is grateful she's going to be around for a very special event. The couple just learned they're about to be first-time grandparents. That's our American Snapshot for tonight and our time. I'm Joe Donlon. Have a great evening. Leland's next with On Balance.